What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Matt Ryan Show. We are in episode 15 now, which is a small little milestone for us. We took a break there during the holiday season, and now we are back. And what a time to come back. We obviously the last few episodes we talked about the Luka trade, we talked about the trade deadline. Last week went over all the rest of the trades that we didn't get to talk about the week before, and here we are at the All Star break. And man, we have a lot to talk about. But first, I want to ask you how you're doing. I know we don't have much time today. Did you get to watch the All Star game last night?
Yeah, I did. I watched the full thing.
Yeah. And
You
here's
know,
the thing: a lot of people
well, go ahead. I
are
know you.
going.
I know
A lot of
you.
people. A lot of people are going crazy online, and rightfully so. Um, I just I don't want people to get lost in the fact that this isn't like a new issue that we're having. It's not like it used to always be the dunk contest and the 3 point contest were like almost the highlights of the weekend, and the All Star game was just everybody having fun, and everybody seems to kind of forget that. But because the household names aren't in the dunk contest and the 3 point contest is just kind of there, that everybody looks towards the All Star game as like their saving grace, and it's never been that. The last time you can remember All Star games being like competitive were probably like early Kobe years. So we're talking about like mid 2000s. Um, so like people kind of get this twisted of like, oh well, the new generation this, nobody's ever tried in the All Star game. Does it look worse now? Does the format suck now? Absolutely. Let's get your take on it first, and then I'll kind of go on a small rant probably.
All right. Well, I I do want to commend the NBA for trying.
Yeah,
They obviously All
they
Star
swung a
game
miss.
All Star game ratings have been going down. They're trying something different. To be honest with you, I actually enjoyed the tournament style. I didn't hate it because I thought it would actually do a better job of getting, especially with the way they separated the teams by putting the OGs together, and then you had the up and coming guys, the rising stars. I thought that was going to be a way of getting them to play a little bit better because the OGs were probably thinking, or you would assume that they would think, well, we don't want the young guys to take over for us just yet, so we have a little bit of pride. And then the other team was, I guess that was kind of the world, which they still had, Donovan Mitchell on their team, and they couldn't make it perfect, but it was pretty much the world with Jokic and Wemby and so forth. So I didn't mind the tournament aspect of it. Just where they missed was the games went by so quickly. There was barely any basketball, and that was one of the biggest gripes. Was those games were over with in what felt like 2 minutes, and then you would have these whatever they did in the middle, whether it was a concert or Kevin Hart talking. It just went on for way too long. So they missed that part of it where obviously the ratings have gone down, but still people want to watch basketball. So they missed that part of it. So what I was thinking was you possibly, if you do the bracket again next year, which I doubted they are because everybody, like you said, is complaining about it. If they went with the bracket next year, what you could do is a round robin. So everybody plays 3 games against each other, and then you take the 2 top teams and they play in a championship. I think that's a way to fix the bracket instead of just doing a single elimination. Now, I've been thinking about this the entire week, and something that I would be embarrassed if I was Adam Silver or a part of the NBA is, and I don't know if you've seen it, but really the talk of the entire week has been about the NHL. Now, the NHL, yes, is one of the big 4 sports in America. It's not like it's cricket or volleyball. It's not like it's a dead sport. Like, it's still a popular sport, but it's definitely not on the level of Major League Baseball, NBA, or NFL. But throughout NBA All Star Weekend, which is supposed to be one of the most watched weekends at NBA, it has been outshined by what the NHL has done. And what the NHL has done is they have perfected replacing their All-Star weekend by making a mini Olympics. And what is so embarrassing is you hear, and especially I know you're going to talk about it, LeBron James with the sore ankle. It better be something. Go ahead, real quick. Go ahead.
I actually didn't. That actually wasn't part of my like.
Oh, okay.
That
Okay.
didn't bother me. Like him, Anthony Edwards, they both were kind of like very last minute, not like didn't play. Anthony Edwards didn't even say anything. He just didn't play. Um, Again, like my issue was more the format, but we'll get into it.
Well,
Talk
well,
about the NHL.
my issue with that is you have to know who you are. A big reason why people watch the All Star game is for LeBron James. So it better be like a serious where if you play on it, there's a good chance that it's gonna get worse and you're gonna be out for a month or something like that. And I don't know. I just have a hard time believing he's expected to play the very next Lakers game. So I just
Which I
have a hard
believe
time.
is the Mavericks. Is that right? Do they play the Mavericks next?
I have no idea. I don't think so. I think that game's coming up though.
Okay.
But that injury has to be serious for you to sit out. So we have LeBron James and all these guys sitting out, possibly because they're worried about injury. Meanwhile, in the NHL, they have set up a mini Olympics. They have Sweden, Finland, Canada, and the USA. The first game with the USA and Canada playing each other, there was 3 fistfights within the first 2 minutes or so.
Do you know
And,
why?
and- well, I guess I don't know the specifics, but those teams don't like each other.
Well, it's because during the pregame, obviously, All Star break, like Canada gets their national anthem here, and then but Canada booed during the U.S. national anthem, which is what kind of started. That's why the first puck dropped. They didn't care about the game. They just fought. Like the very first drop of the puck was a fight, and that was
Yes.
strictly because the Canadians had booed our national anthem. But that's part of the reason
But,
that works.
but what, yeah, I guess the point what I was making was those guys in games that didn't matter, I mean, they're fist fighting.
It's
Like
because they who's on their chest. There's no All Star game thing on their chest. It's USA versus Canada. So that automatically that puts at least a little bit of I don't know, purpose in the game to where like you're now representing your country, whether it's a game that's meaningful or not. You still want to go and beat and show that you're the better country. Like that's just
Correct.
competition at its core.
Correct. But I commend the NHL a home run because they probably, the championships game is scheduled for Thursday, and Canada and Finland played this afternoon. Last time I checked, Canada went up 2-0 early. Canada ended up probably winning that match. But it's probably going to be USA and Canada in the championship Thursday. That will be the most watched game in America on that day. USA and Canada for that championship.
Now, forgive me, I am inept in the NHL world. I didn't realize. I thought that was also a single elimination to where like
No, they
they
have
were. I
done.
thought they were playing for third place over there
Yeah,
today.
no, they have all everybody that's playing in that tournament is part of the NHL, and they have 4 teams round robin, so everybody plays 3 games, and then the best
Oh,
2 come out and play a championship. So USA and Canada is going to play again on Thursday. That is when the NBA starts back, and I
they will.
promise you,
Yeah,
nobody is going to be watching whatever TNT has on. They're going to be watching that USA Canada match. And that's people choosing to select hockey over regular season
let's be
NBA.
clear. I've never watched a hockey game on TV in my life. Haven't seen one in person. I've heard it's one of the greatest experiences you can have is going to watch an NHL game in person, especially in the playoffs. I will be tuning in on Thursday if that's the case. I did not know that this was a round robin. I thought in my stupid brain that we beat Canada in the first round. They are now playing for the third place title game, kind of like you do in the regular Olympics, and we're playing who is it, Finland or
Yeah,
Sweden
Finland.
in the championship. If this is the case where we play Finland and we beat them, and we play Canada on Thursday in the championship, I will be tuning in. I don't care who plays on Thursday for the NBA. That is how you get people that aren't involved in the NHL to go watch your sport. Is seeing stuff like that.
Yes. And I don't know what made them do this idea. I know the Olympics is coming up next year and the NHL. So I want to say the last couple of Olympics, the NHL has not allowed players to go and play for their country. And then I think this upcoming one they are. So the last time that happened, I believe, was 2014, and the NHL, they did like a 2-week break for the Olympics where the NHL players could go and play for their country in the Olympics. So I assume that's what they're going to. I'm not 100% on that. It's kind of just what I think happened from watching it last time. But the NHL, they killed it. Perfect. Replace the All-Star game with pretty much a mini Olympics. Now, I was thinking, how could the NBA do this? Now, it would definitely be harder. And the main reason, there's two main reasons. One, USA is so dominant over all the other countries. In hockey, it's a little bit different. The US hasn't won the Olympics since 1980. So it's not like US is the favorites right now. So all those 4 teams that are in it, it's pretty even.
Well, that's the other part. Is like this is not our sport for hockey. Like Canada has been known for hockey forever, so that's why it got so much attention when we beat them on Saturday. Is that what it was?
Yeah, Saturday
Whatever,
night.
whatever
Yeah.
that was. That's why it got so much attention. It's like it's an upset, and it's also again your country is putting on a show for the whole
Yeah.
world against a team that has been so dominant.
Correct. So that's an issue is if you did something like this in the NBA, the US would probably win. But they always usually win in the Olympics and everybody always watches the Olympics.
Here's
So
the issue: is you can't split it up by countries or regions.
yes.
You got to figure out a way to make it even to where it's not just U.S. versus France versus Spain, because then you're getting the Olympics and you don't get the entire roster because like there's not enough players in the NBA. Now, the best part about what could possibly happen is that the foreigners that are in the game are a lot of them are top tier players. Like there's not a lot of foreigners that are 13 mans on the bench. A lot of the guys that are playing that are foreigners in this game are top 50, top 100 players. So you can make a squad out of USA versus the world and just call it that,
Yes.
and have the best players in the world that are not from the US go play. And you can, I mean, there's splitting hairs. Like Cat is technically from the Dominican Republic. I'm sure Kyrie, I think he's got ties to a different country. I can't remember which one now that I say it, but you have 3 of the top 5 players in the world are foreigners. I mean, Luka, Nikola, and Giannis. There's 3 of them right there. Automatically, and then you've got Wemby. The thing that bothered me, and we'll kind of get back to the actual NBA All-Star game, is nobody's ever cared, which is fine. If that's what they want to do, if this is their break and they want to take the weekend off.
I beg to differ because I really used to. I would say like 10, 15 years ago, and now that was when I was like 12, 13 years old, so I probably had a different mindset on it.
You probably
But
weren't paying attention to the
I
defense at
really,
that point. You
I
were just
really
watching.
did care about watching the All-Star game.
Oh, I still care about watching it. I'm saying as a player, they don't care. They just don't want to get hurt. Like their mindset is go out there, put on a show of just half court shots and dunks, and let's get out of
And
here.
that's on them. And that brings up my point again about the NHL is these guys, I know it is countries, but they still have a season going on. So they're willing to get into fistfights while these NBA players, which there's never been an injury in an All-Star game, are just scared to go 90, 80%.
Well, I don't think there's. I agree. I wish they would, but it's so hard to compare it to other sports. Like the Pro Bowl is the only thing that's close to it, and you look how that's turned out. They don't want to play hard. They don't want to injure themselves, and that's a completely different side because you can actually get hurt in the Pro Bowl if somebody hits you, just like any other football game, which is why it's turning into the worst All Star thing that any sport has ever had. But the
Well, that's
NBA
what
is not
I'm
too
confused
far
about
behind.
this because hockey, even in their All Star games,
Yeah,
to
but
be
I've
honest with you,
never
I've never
watched
watched
hockey.
that.
So that's the thing is like I've never watched a regular hockey game versus an all star. So I don't know if they're shooting further or what, like if they're doing trick shot. I don't know what that means to their side.
They're
So I
definitely
can't.
probably not fist fighting in the All
Well,
Star.
yeah. So I don't know if that's how different that is over there. But I can only compare it to, and baseball is a little different too because you've got the home run derby, so you get to show that side, which is what everybody cares about. But then the All Star game, you have pitchers that are going to strike somebody out. The
Yeah,
only issue,
I think out of all the All Star games, baseball is the best. Now, I will say in baseball, you can't go easy in baseball, or else it is just definitely noticeable. Like a pitcher that throws 99 miles per hour.
if he's throwing 80.
Yeah, you can't throw 90 miles per hour or something like
Yeah.
that. But also too, I think the baseball players, they just have more pride. The All Star game this past year, Paul Skeens was on the mound, and a lot of the talk was how is he going to face Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. Paul Skeens was up there. He wasn't worried about injury. He was throwing 100 miles per hour, 99 miles per hour. Now,
Well, I think also baseball is different because it's an individual battle. Every pitch is an individual battle between a batter and a pitcher, and the rest of the field is the backup or like it's such a different. It's so hard to compare the sports. I I want to say Friday night All Star game was the Rising Stars, the celebrity game. Obviously, nobody watches that. You see the clips online, but that's about it. The Rising Stars, they played. They everybody that was on those teams tried. I did watch those. Those were fine. Saturday was left to be desired. Mac McClung won his third straight NBA dunk contest, which is that's fun. Here's the thing: 2016 was so good that everybody just wants to go back and reminisce. But that was 10 years ago now, and that's never going to happen again. So you didn't enjoy it while it was there at the time, and now it's past, and now you're just looking back in the rearview mirror, going, "Man, I wish I had that still." Instead of trying to enjoy what's going on. 3-point contest is whatever. The way that the NBA can help the future of the All Star game is I've got the numbers pulled up. So the first game between between Kenny and Chuck, I believe, was the two teams.
yeah.
Was a total of 9 minutes and 15 seconds of gameplay. The second game was the Rising Stars versus the OGs. 11 minutes of gameplay, and that's just because they missed more shots.
And also, too, I felt like that game was such a waste of time. And I think that game was
The best one.
100% rigged. There is no way.
Okay.
There is no way they were going to let those Rising Stars win to
Who's
take
they?
away from people who paid money to go see that game, to take away them seeing from Steph. I 100% believe they told the Rising Stars, hey, play well, but if it gets to the end and you guys start to actually win, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the truth.
I don't think that's it. I think what happened is I think Adam Silver wanted the Rising Stars to win. And why I say that is, yeah, the ratings for this year might be down, but they were already down anyway. But that then lights a fire under everybody else going like, it's a very, very high risk because it either goes in the direction of, oh, we've actually got to try now because these guys are trying, and you at least get to see good basketball. Or the flip side is you lose that, and then all the OGs are like, well, we didn't try anyway, so who gives a shit? And then the also game just becomes a complete
I
joke.
agree with you. I agree with you. If the Rising Stars would have won the whole thing, I think there had to be some kind of embarrassment from the All Stars because everybody would have been.
Which is why when it got close in the end, the OGs started to play a little defense. Like they started to get up in them.
Yeah, they were like, we
and
can't let.
the young guys felt the pressure and they couldn't hit a shot, which is to be normal. let's get back to it. The final game was 10 minutes and 15 seconds of gameplay. The entirety of the All-Star weekend of Sunday was a 3-hour broadcast, roughly. 30 minutes and 30 seconds was the only gameplay that we had in 3 hours. Doesn't include the 2-hour broadcast before the game started that led up to the All-Star game. And just a quick note here, the intro with ads was 30 minutes. The pregame talk was 10. Doesn't include the 2-hour pregame show that they had. Game 1, we just talked about. The Mr. Beast challenge was 5 minutes long, which felt like an eternity, even though luckily that kid hit the shot, got 100K, good
I
for
actually
him.
did not watch that because I turned over SNL was doing their 50th anniversary.
And I
So
don't blame you.
that
Yeah,
I just came back and saw Mr. Beast on the screen and I was like, what in the world is going on?
watching Saturday Night Live on a Sunday is interesting.
I thought that was
Um,
interesting too. They did the whole I thought you would do that on Saturday, but
Maybe you
anyways.
just missed it. The music performance was 6 minutes long, which that felt longer. That's the one part I didn't mind out of the whole thing. And the Inside the NBA tribute, which was at the worst time you did it in the middle of the game of the last game, was 9 minutes long.
Yeah.
9 minutes of them just bullshitting on the court with fucking fish hats
Well,
and
it,
fishing rods.
it probably felt a lot longer because they meant to use it as a halftime, but one of the biggest issues was they got to make the scoring higher because
The
those guys were
format's awful
40 points. That's just
for guys that can hit shots. Why, like, but the worst part is that the last game they were actually trying at the beginning. Like, it was
yeah.
actually competitive, and Wembanyama hadn't even checked in yet. Who was the only guy who actually cares to be out there to try? Like, he was actually taking it
Wembanyama was in
serious.
a full sweat. It was awesome.
Which I'll get to that in a second. So you get this early start where people were actually trying the OGs versus the world team, and after the first media timeout, which is awful in a 40-point game, I'm not sure how you have two media times out in a 40-point game, is comes back and it's the tribute to the Inside the TNT crew basically, and it was so long. It was outrageous. They had 2 hours before the game to do that if they wanted to. They had 3 intermissions between each game to do it. They didn't do it then. They decided to do it in the middle of the game, and then they got back on the floor, and everybody's like, "Well, I just took 15 minutes off. I don't know what you want me to do now." Like, I'm not. Nobody tried after that. It just became pretty much what the old All Star game was long shots, no defense, nobody cared, and why I think that the All Star game could get better in the future is the face of the league, whether it had been Kobe back then in the 2000s, if he was trying, everybody else was trying. If LeBron James isn't trying, nobody else is going to try if he's not going to, because what else are we doing here? When Wembanyama becomes the face of this league in 3 or 4 years, and I think he will, and he starts trying at these All Star games and actually like wants to win and it tries, and it doesn't have to be extra incentives, it doesn't have to be home court advantage. I think it'll make the All Star game better. You can do whatever format you want. You can go back East West. You can go USA versus World. You cannot do the 40-point target score. I think it's an awful way to play basketball. You can do a target score of 150 if that's what you want, and you don't want to put time limit on it. That's fine, but you can't split it up that many times and have a good product. But I think Wembanyama will take an All Star game to the next level when he becomes the face of the league because he will actually try out there and it'll make everybody else. I mean, he was pissed at the last shot when Tatum got that dunk. I don't know if you've seen that camera footage, but
I did, and I didn't
Sangoon
see
got
his reaction.
Sangoon. He was at the top of the key and he's guarding up, and they're down by like 9 and the OGs only need 1 point. And Sangoon gives up a wide open dunk to Jason Tatum, and Wimby's like visibly upset when the pass gets thrown, as if like, are we not still trying here? So I think that attitude going in the future will help the All Star game tremendously.
Yeah, yeah, I love what you said about Wembanyama, and I hope that happens. And this might be a hot take or an interesting take, but I'm glad you brought up Kobe. And I think the All Star game might have a problem because of who the games, and this is ratings. This has been a problem with the NBA and ratings, and we've had this conversation, but it might be a problem with who the stars of the game are right now. So you go 10 years ago, who were your stars? Steph,
LeBron.
KD, and those guys are still the stars, but there's no doubt about it, they're out of their prime. And those guys are struggling to get back to NBA finals. So that's one of the biggest problems. Like LeBron, Steph, and KD are still some of the best players in this league, but it's not like they're going to NBA finals or Western Conference finals every year. So 10 years ago, those were your guys. You know, you can throw in Kobe. You had, I'll throw him in there, Carmelo, Russell Westbrook.
You got to go back a little bit further than that then, because we're talking about 2015.
I mean, Russell Westbrook was still
2015, yeah, I was talking about Melo. Melo and Kobe.
Melo was
Kobe's in
towards
the,
the back end. Melo was towards the back end of his prime, but he was.
and so was Kobe.
You had Kyrie Irving. So, fast forward 10 years. Who are your stars now? Jokic, Giannis. I would
Shea.
throw in Shea. But I would say the superstars right now, or your leaders of the league, they just aren't followed for whatever reason, whether it's because they're not USA or it's because they don't care about the spotlight. As much as I love Jokic, I hate watching him in the All-Star game. He is.
Go
Say
ahead.
it.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead. What were you saying?
The reason that it's the same reason that people can't move forward is they're still everybody's still hanging on to the old people, so they don't want to
Yes.
have a new face in the league because they still think it's LeBron and Steph and KD, which is fine. In 2 years, when reality hits and they all retire, or 3 or 4 or how many more years they play, there's going to be a reality check, and they're going to go, well, we're going to have to follow somebody now. So who's that going to be? That's when your Wimbies, your Shays, your probably not Jokic because he couldn't give a fuck less if you follow him or if I follow him or if 50 million people follow
Yeah.
him. But guys like that could take the next step. I mean, people think maybe Jason Tatum could be that next USA guy, but
But that's the thing. I don't understand why Jason Tatum is not on that level. He's an NBA Finals champ. He's an Olympic.
because people hate him.
But yeah, that's what I don't understand. And honestly, why I kind of would love to see if Boston went back to back. I really do think maybe the NBA just needs a team like the Chiefs where they hate it. And I think people hate Jason Tatum. I don't know why. And I went on this rant when we started this podcast. Jason Tatum is a phenomenal player. He is a good model citizen, doesn't get into any trouble. And he's the face of one of the most storied franchises in not just basketball, but in the entire sports in USA, period. Like the Boston Celtics is one of the greatest sports franchises in history. So and people don't like him because he's corny. Like that is so lame. That's so lame. And it's coming from people who all they do is they sit behind their phone and tweet about it. So, but I think it would be great for the league if the Boston Celtics went on a dynasty and Jason Tatum was the forefront of it because it would give them somebody to hate. And people love watching somebody's downfall.
Well, and here's also the issue is you're right about that. There is so much negativity in today's game, whether it be online, whether it be the people that are doing the media now. Like, were they negative 10 years ago? Yes. But did you hear about it all the time? No. I mean, can you name one guy or two guys that actually care about the game, that will talk about the game and in a positive way? The only two guys I know is SVP and Tim Legler at 11 o'clock at night when nobody the hell's watching. And even if they were watching, they turn it off because they're not actually interested in basketball. That's the issue. You have basketball fans who aren't actually interested in basketball. They care about the storylines, the headlines, the beef that people have with each other. They don't actually give a fuck about the game. They care about the outside noise that comes with it. So that's the issue is nobody actually cares about the game of basketball. It's simply just a narrative that they want to hold on to and run with. That way they can feel good about their day or have a purpose. And it really it frustrates me, obviously, because if you like the game, you wouldn't listen to guys like Stephen A. or Shannon Sharp talk about basketball. An NFL tight end who couldn't care less about the game of basketball just sits up there on a pedestal and talks all day. Kendrick Perkins might be the worst analyst I've ever heard in my entire life. And here I go being negative after just talking about people should be positive. But like those are the guys that you listen to, and then you just spew out whatever they say. Then you got the Inside the TNT people. I mean, they have become pretty much just as bad. Everybody used to love when they used to do their segments. You know, Shaq and the Fool. They used to talk about all these guys. Chuck doesn't know ball because he doesn't know how to name the players that are on each team. And they used to be funny, and now it's gotten to the point where it's like they don't actually watch basketball. Like they're just up there for entertainment purposes, which you all have just now realized. And now that the OGs are about to retire and there's nobody to carry the sport, so, quote unquote, there could be a fall off for the NBA. And I think that's what they're worried about. But games like this are not helping. Times like this where the All Star game used to be
No.
fun. So, long story short, the long rant was to say the All Star game can improve, but that is actually the least of the worries that I have about the NBA. Uh, Eventually, it will be USA versus world, and eventually the world will take over because when LeBron, Steph, and KD leave, as soon as those three retire, that USA team is not winning anymore. Because if it's being led by Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum, you've got Jokic, SGA, Luca, Wimby. Those four guys right there that I would take over anybody on the USA side. So automatically, the world is winning that battle. So that could bring juices back to the All Star game. But until that happens, you're gonna have to find a different way to enjoy basketball, which might be actually sitting down and watching the games.
Yeah, I think what you said, that would be the best starting point for the All-Star game format next year. Just go back to normal four quarters, but do USA versus world. Just you get your
And make the
basketball.
jerseys USA versus world. That actually matters a lot more than people will assume. But if you have USA on your chest, you are going to try harder. It doesn't matter what sport it is. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're representing your country, no matter what format it is, you will try harder.
Yeah,
It's just inevitable.
yeah, but it also reminds me of in golf they have the Solheim Cup,
Yeah,
uh, where that's USA versus Europe, but this is
and the Ryder Cup.
essentially, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, just you're adding Canada. So, but obviously, that's a big thing in golf. It's not a great comparison because like that's part of their season in golf. I mean, that's when you talk about injury, that's just a whole nother like that's
Yeah,
the comparison I'm just saying is there with the teams and how they kind of split it up. They do USA versus Europe. So,
yeah. Well, I
um,
mean, that's the easiest way to go because the world is caught up. And I know last night they talked about it on the broadcast that Shaq doesn't think the world's caught up. Well, he's also living in the past along with every other old head because they've already caught up and they already probably have surpassed the U.S. I know it didn't show, but if you take the world versus U.S., the world's winning every time. If you take France versus U.S., you saw how close that was just by itself. So the rest of the world has caught up. Certain countries having enough talent probably haven't yet, but we're not too far away from that either. So
well, that's why
this,
I would kind of like if they did the hockey format. I think there's a direction you could do USA Canada because Canada's actually got a squad.
yeah,
And then you could separate Europe into regions.
that's what
You
I
could
thought
have
about.
yeah, that because if you just have a France, then I don't know what your other country's going to be.
Well, because the
So
problem is like Canada's good. Canada has the most NBA players out of the world teams. France has really good players that play in France or play for the French national team, but they're not playing in the NBA. Canada has like 10 or 12 guys that actually play in the NBA. Um, France is not too far away from that now because every year there seems to be a French guy getting drafted in the top 10. But if you separate by regions, if you've got, Slovenia and Serbia as like one
Like
thing, and
Eastern, you could
Jokic,
do like Eastern Europe, or come up with some kind of name. Like,
to where like Luka and Jokic can play on the same team and nobody really
yeah,
bats an
well,
eye.
even Giannis with Greece, if he's in the
Yeah,
same region, there's going to be a ton of people that watch that.
yeah.
And
So
I think if it was like that, Jokic and Luca, who they've never really taken the All Star game seriously, I think they would. If they had a chance, if you told them, hey, you get a chance to go up against USA, I think they would definitely take that a little bit more seriously.
yeah,
So
because Luka's really never had a shot in the
no,
Olympics because Slovenia's not any
it's
good.
him. That's pretty
It's
much
just him. Yeah. So, and same thing with Giannis. Giannis is carrying Greece, Luka's carrying. Serbia has a decent team, but it's still Jokic just carrying everybody. So if you get to throw a few players together that actually care, I don't know how that would work if you have enough roster space. If people would even be on those rosters.
yeah.
I also don't know how it would mess with the All Star format. It's like, are you still taking just the All Stars and making it the regions, or are you specifically creating regions to make um, these All Star games? Like, how many people do you have on a squad? That's why the formatting of having 4 teams is tough, because you don't get an All Star nod technically if you're the 12th guy on the Region A team, because there's no way that guy's making the All Star game in a normal year. So I don't know. I think we're getting to the point where eventually there's going to be enough world players that you can just make the All Star game. Everybody gets an All Star nod and just split them up like you would. So
Yeah.
we're not too far
Um,
away from that.
yeah, I think that would be the best thing to do. But yeah, man, just frustrating. I know it's frustrating if you're an NBA fan, but I think they just with this All Star Weekend they tried a little bit too hard. They
Here's
just
my thing though. They swung and missed.
a
They swung though.
100%. But I've always really liked Kevin Hart. He was just awful. He was awful, and then he made the porn joke to Shaq, and it's like, hey man, this isn't one of your comedy shows, like, and it was just really, it was awkward. It was
Well,
just, it felt like it was awkward.
that was a last ditch effort because he wasn't. It's not like he was bombing, but nobody cared about what they were saying. They were tired
Yeah,
of it actually. Like they got to the point where it's like, all right, get off the screen. Let's actually watch basketball, because it became just a Kevin Hart roasting NBA players, and even the NBA players were like, dude, shut up. We're trying to play
yeah.
basketball
They
during the
even tried
game.
to turn it into street ball where they cut off the usual play-by-play announcers, then it just had Ernie and Kevin Hart, and he was kind of the
Yeah.
MC. But it was just it just felt off. So like you said, they swung and missed 100%. They tried something different, and it didn't work.
And one thing I do agree with, and it was Draymond's point of, yes, the Rising Stars competed and they actually like, played basketball like you normally would. However, I don't think they should be able to get to play on Sundays. That is a specific reserve spot for NBA All Stars who have worked really hard during the regular season, and now we're just giving it to kids who are up and comers, quote unquote. So I'm not a fan of that, but um, there's a lot of things that we could talk about that went wrong, whether it be people bailing out a minute before the game, not giving their roster spots up, which is interesting to me how you can do that when you only have 8 guys on a team. I guess because the target score is 40, it didn't matter, but it's like, you know, somebody's going to need they're all over 35, so somebody's going to need a rest at some point. It would have been nice to give that spot to somebody else. Norman Powell could have got his first NBA All Star nod, which I'm sure he would have enjoyed thoroughly. But the people, they'll try new things. They will fix it. Um, it just may take a few years to get it to
I
that
just
point.
think I think the NBA has overreacted to the. I kind of wish they just all these years would have just done West and East and just kept it going. I think they have overreacted to some of the complaints, and because of it, they've made it worse, unfortunately.
Well,
But I will say the idea of the captains where the players choose, I actually have, I liked that.
I didn't mind that. I mean, you got to see players who don't normally play against each other get to play against, like Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum play against each other. You had other notable guys, I would assume. I'm trying to remember how many years they did that for. 3 or 4, I thought.
Yeah, this
Was
year would have been funny because I'm pretty sure Jokic was the highest vote getter for the West. So just imagining Jokic going on TNT and picking his team
yeah,
would have been kind of entertaining.
yeah. Nobody would like he wouldn't have cared. He'd be like, I'll take that guy. I
I'll
don't.
take him. It's like that's Sabonis and he's not playing.
Yeah. Um, but eventually it could get to the point, and I did see a few players. This happens every year, though, so I'm not gonna do it. But there was a few players that got on their Twitter fingers and said, hey, let's see if we can get this dunk contest back to what it was. It was Zach LaVine, and Aaron Gordon. Let's be clear, Aaron Gordon's never doing a contest again after what D Wade pulled back in 20. What was it? 2018 maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
Because he basically gave it to Derek Jones Jr. because he was the Miami Heat. How that's even allowed is crazy to me. So Aaron Gordon got screwed out of 2 dunk contests. There's no way he's going back for a third. He's also 32 maybe now. So like I don't know if he can even still do half the dunks that he could back then. Zach LaVine said he could. I'm sure he could still get up and fly. He floats in the air no matter what. Ja, that's assuming Ja's either healthy or not suspended by the time we get to the All Star break of next year. So who knows if that's even possible. So it's all wishful thinking, but it would be nice to have guys like that come out and
Yeah,
um,
that is an easy fix. The dunk contest is an easy fix, and I said it last time we did the podcast with the home run derby. They have superstars.
yeah.
They have some of the best players in the game go and do that home run derby, which makes it more meaningful to the fans. So if you had a dunk contest next year of Mac McClung, John Morant, Zach LaVine, and I think Giannis, didn't Giannis say that he was?
Giannis said
I
if Ja did it, I would do it. Everybody would tune in.
Guarantee you the ratings would skyrocket.
Here's the thing: if that's the case, make the purse high. You have all the money in the world. If it's just incentives that
Yes,
they want, make it $1 million. Like
I don't understand. And
you're gonna make that in the night if people tune into it.
yeah, and also too, the injury argument is still crazy to me. Who has ever gotten injured doing a
That's
dunk
a cop out for dunk contest. Nobody. Here's the issue.
Never gotten
Nobody wants to try a new dunk and fail and then look like an idiot that can't do a dunk contest.
Yeah,
Jalen
I
Brown
don't
did
think
it
it's
last year.
about, but that's the thing. I don't think it's about trying new dunks. I think if we just get to see John Morant do a six 360 dunk or something, it's
Yeah.
John Morant, so people are going to love it.
Well, because Jalen Brown did it last year, and it was one of the worst dunk contest, tryouts I've ever seen. Like it was awful. Like his dunks were. I mean, he did a dab
Jalen
dunk.
Brown, yes, Jalen Brown is a star in this league. He's not John Morant.
Correct. But even then, like again, we're still assuming Ja's healthy and or playing by the time we get to the All Star break, if he's even willing to do this. Giannis said he'd do it if Ja did it. Zach LaVine is the one that's kind of
You know who
putting all
also
this
too?
together.
If they, he'll never do it. Zion. If Zion Williamson did the dunk contest,
I need Zion Williamson to play 10 games before I let him do a dunk contest.
yeah, that's why I said.
Yeah. No, but you could have a lot of guys out there that are known to be great
Yeah,
dunkers.
The dunk
But if
contest is an easy fix. Easy fix.
it is, but you
It's-
gotta get guys to buy in. That's the hardest part is getting these guys to actually do it. And LeBron. I saw the clip where like 19 years ago, LeBron said that he would eventually do a dunk contest. Like he was in the middle of an all-star game or dunk contest, one of the two. And this is 2006, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do a dunk contest, blah blah blah. And then somebody was like, this is where the lies started, because there's a whole thread of him lying, whether it's reading a book or talking about a movie. and that's where it all started.
Knew a player was going to be great or something like that.
Of course, he knew. Yeah, he knew
I think
everything.
he called him
So
insanity when it happened.
didn't you?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
No, unfortunately, I cannot take that credit.
Yeah. So, getting guys like that to actually commit, even though they say it, on TV and don't follow through, it would be the biggest issue.
Well, good thing, not the good thing. It is over.
Yeah.
Second half of the season starts.
It starts on Wednesday, which is nice. We only get 2 more days off, and then because this is recorded on Monday, so tonight and tomorrow we'll have off and get back to a Hornets Lakers game that I'm sure everybody's ramped up and excited for.
Yeah, full
Everybody gets to
stress.
see.
Do you have, as the season has gone on, do you have a Final Four pick that you got right now? I actually have an idea of one that I
Okay.
like.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure, I guess. Yeah, I asked you.
I would go. Obviously, I think Boston is going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think. I think the addition of DeAndre Hunter has got them so close, but I think I would still pick the Milwaukee Bucks over the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think it's just because I trust Giannis more than I trust Donovan Mitchell at this moment and at every moment. So I'm actually going to pick the Bucks to make the Eastern Conference Finals on that East. And the West, obviously, it kind of gets shaky out there, but I'm still going to go with the original pick I had at the beginning of the season, which is Thunder Nuggets.
That's good. That's I mean the West, yeah, West is interesting.
You're going to throw the Lakers in
Um
there, aren't you? I can't stand
don't
you.
you love how I was like, that's good. That was just that was just
It's a filler.
that was a filler just to be like, okay, how do I start this?
Yeah.
Um
Oh.
East definitely Celtics. I am fully bought in to the New York Knicks. I am fully bought in. I think if they played a series against the Cavaliers, I know they got DeAndre Hunter, but I love the way that the Knicks play defense, and I think playing at MSG is impossible. And I I love the way Cat is playing this year. I
Hmm.
Paul Anthony Towns has been awesome, and Josh Hart's been great, and I still don't entirely trust the Cavaliers
Yeah.
with Donovan Mitchell. So
Here's what I
uh,
will say, though. Matchups are huge in the East. Matchups are big because if, obviously, between Milwaukee, the Knicks, and Cavs, one of them's got to play the Boston Celtics to even get to the Eastern Conference Finals. So automatically off the bat, one of those teams are dead. If the Cavs and the Knicks play each other, I think it could drag out to be a 6 or 7 game series just on the fact that the Knicks don't really have big men other than Cat. So you're now working with Jared Allen, Evan Mobley every single night, 7 games straight, and I'm not sure Cat can handle that for a 48-minute stretch because at least one of those two guys are gonna be in at all times.
yeah, that would be the biggest problem. I guess I just think that Bridges and Hart on
Yeah.
Mitchell and Garland, it's not going to be easy. So I
No.
guess if you have to rely on Jared Allen, if those guys aren't doing anything, if you got to rely on Evan Mobley taking over a game or something, I just don't like. If Jalen Brunson is struggling, I think Cat can go out there and he did it at times against Jokic in that series last year against the Nuggets. So, but you're
Yeah, and
right.
he also had Rudy Gobert backing him up or Nas Reed
You're
backing him
right.
up.
You're
So he's not
yeah,
like
and
he was playing the four.
Nas Reed was incredible off the bench. So, but
Now here's my thing. I've got a little trivia for you. I don't know if you've seen this or not. I saw it on a different podcast, and I wish I could give him credit, but I couldn't remember the name if I tried. There's been 8 lineups, 3-man lineups, that have logged the most minutes in the NBA this year. A trio of players. Who do you think? There's top 8 spots. Who do you think the number 1 spot is?
a trio of players. So it's got to be Hart, combination of like Hart, Brunson, and Who am I forgetting? Bridges.
Bridges or Cat. Okay. And who do you think number 2 is?
Probably same on the Knicks. Is there another
Okay.
trio on the Knicks?
There
I just
is.
remember that being a huge storyline was
And who do you
Josh
think number
Hart
3
playing
is?
the Knicks.
And who do you think number 4 is?
Is it the Knicks?
My problem is all 8 spots are taken up by the Knicks. A trio of players, whether it be Brunson, Cat, and McHale, whether it be Brunson, Cat, and Josh Hart, whether it be Brunson, Josh Hart, and McHale. It could be McHale, Josh Hart, and Cat. Those 5 guys have not gotten a break, and that was at the All Star break. So then they've gotten a week now. Cat and Brunson really didn't get much one-on-one, but by the time we get to the playoffs, they're going to be dead. And I know Tibbs doesn't care; he'll run the same lineup no matter what. But it has hurt him in the playoffs more times than not, whether it be nagging injuries by the time you get there, or just guys that are dead after an 82 game season. I mean, you cannot play that way for that long.
That is their downside is they are not as deep as Boston. They're not as deep as Cleveland. Their sixth man is Deuce McBride, who's a nice player, but
We love Deuce on this podcast.
this is a Deuce Stan podcast.
It is.
But other than Deuce,
Yeah, they lost Dante. They lost.
Campaign.
Yeah, I don't know.
Campaign's their 7 guy.
We got
So
him. Princess Achua, I think, has been playing a lot.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
they are just they do rely. It is a great starting lineup, but they
great.
do rely a ton on those guys.
Yeah, and OG was the other guy we were forgetting. And that is not sustainable. You can't the trio of the most minutes logged, and you've got 8 spots, and you take up all 8 of them. That is bananas. That is insane for an 82 game season. So that's why the Knicks have not been in my Eastern Conference Finals conversation. They have the talent to get there. The problem is, I think the coaching is going to hinder it by the time we get to the playoffs, and that's assuming everybody's healthy. I mean, OG is known to have a history of injuries. Mikal Bridges is one of the most reliable and durable players to probably ever play this game. I don't think he's ever missed a game. He might have with the Nets a few times there, but he had like a stretch where he was like 4 years of playing every game or whatever the hell. Tibbs is going to ruin him. Like he will miss games because of Tibbs, and it's just going to get to the breaking point of who's going to be that team to take them to 5 or 6 or 7, and by that 7th game they're going to be dead.
Yeah, I guess it was a big reason. They should have beat the Pacers last year.
Yeah.
And they got late in that series, and that was an issue. So they do rely a lot on their starting lineup.
But you still got them going to the Eastern Conference Finals. All right. And that's as it gets the Celtics. So who do you got in the West?
I mean, I said it. I don't want to go back on it. Denver, they have Jokic. They have the best player. You're always going to have a chance. I think that one depends on the matchups. I'll stick with the Lakers. I think if the Lakers get into a matchup with the Thunder in the semifinals, if Luka can get to playing like he was last year with LeBron James, I think they can get it done. So
It'd be interesting for sure, especially in that home court. I want to see OKC go back to the way it was in like 2015, 2016 when Russ and KD were there, and it was a whiteout, and the fans are going crazy. Like that home court advantage
yeah,
will mean something for OKC. So
yeah,
I think
it
that'll
will. Now the thing that I hate about it, I love Shea.
Mhm.
I love Shea so much. He is so smooth. If he lost again in the semifinals, there would be a serious. There would be some conversations about him.
Well, and here are the conversations, and we'll finish this off real quick because I know you got to go. The conversations would be this. It's the same thing I had with James Harden. It's not the same thing, but I have been on. I was early on James Harden. I was early on Russell Westbrook. I love Shea, but I don't want to be early on this. But you cannot rely on free throws in the playoffs, and his game is relied on free throws. He gets 15 a night. It feels like. So if your game is relying on free throws in the playoffs, you're going to have to find different ways to score because they're not going to give you those same calls. And James Harden was a victim of it. There's another guy I'm forgetting who was a victim of it, but it could be ugly for OKC if Shea doesn't actually become a number one guy that can take you to a finals.
Yeah, a lot of interesting conversations. It'll be fun. We're finally second half of the season. It'll be
Getting down the
great.
stretch.
I know once the middle of March comes around, it's going to be awful because we're going to be like 3 weeks out from the playoffs, and everybody's going to be ready for it. And
We'll be watching March Madness, and then as soon as we get
oh
done with
yeah,
March Madness,
we got March coming up.
it'll be NBA playoff time. So it's always a perfect time of the year if you're a basketball fan. And I'll be going to a March Madness game at Rip Arena first
Let's
weekend.
go.
It's great.
Well, that's right. They're playing at Rupp, so I might have to
Mhm.
join you. You said your house was open. You're just going to which session? Are you going to like the first
The
round?
first session on Thursday, so I think the 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock game, I'd assume, and on that Thursday, and then we're going to come home and watch the rest of the games, and probably take off Friday and just sit around and watch a bunch of basketball.
Yeah, I mean that's
Moving into that weekend, it's a
the
beautiful
best,
day.
It's the best weekend of the year. It's
Yeah, but until then, we will talk about the NBA playoffs here shortly because we are creeping up on that, and kind of get some matchups and interesting conversations going. But we'll see y'all next week.